Hello, my name is Evie, and this is part 3 of my Girl Scout Gold Award webinar, Be a Sister to Every Scout. Today, we're going to be talking about terminology. A few things before we jump in. 1. I did my best to design this webinar so that you could technically jump in at any time, but in this case, I highly recommend that you go back to the previous episode where we start talking about spectrums, as I will be referring to concepts that I went over then frequently in this video. The previous episode should be linked above and in the description, and it should be easy to find. Secondly, I won't be able to cover every single gender identity or sexual identity out there. So if someone is coming out to you as a different term that you haven't heard before, please don't dismiss them. A lot of stressing and thinking goes into what label someone chooses to go by, or lack thereof, and it's really, really straight up just damaging when people just refuse to accept it. Thirdly, in a similar vein, if someone uses a term that I define in this video, but their identity doesn't quite match up with it, don't tell them that they're wrong. Human gender and sexuality are super fluid and individual, making it hard to find agreed upon terms for some labels, particularly for non-binary identities. Sometimes people have to settle for the closest label that they can find, even if it's not perfect. Sexuality terminology. Straight. This term refers to a person who is attracted to the opposite sex. A man who is attracted to a woman, or a woman who is attracted to a man. Some people think this is a slur, but it's just not. It's not. That's all I have to say. Gay. Gay actually has a few different meanings. The traditional meaning is a man that is attracted to other men. That is still used. In addition to that usage, the word gay is sometimes used to refer to anyone who is not straight as like a big umbrella term, although the latter is a little frowned upon, but technicalities. You should be seeing a pride flag next to my head right now if all goes well. And I'd like to sidetrack for a minute to talk about the history of that pride flag, because it's actually quite interesting to me. The original pride flag looks something like this. It was created in 1977 by Gilbert Baker by Harvey Milk's Challenge, with each color representing a different part of the pride movement. Hot pink for sex, red for life, orange for healing, yellow for sunlight, green for nature, turquoise for art, indigo for serenity, and violet for spirit. Over the years, the hot pink and turquoise bars were dropped as they were expensive fabric to find, and in recent years, the city of Philadelphia is credited with creating the person of color inclusive flag, which looks like this. The additional stripes representing the Latinx and Black communities seek to recognize the racial groups that were historically excluded from Pride, despite the fact that it was primarily POC people that kickstarted the civil rights movement in the first place. Lesbian. Lesbian refers to a woman who likes other women. This pride flag is a modern version of the original pride flag, which was redesigned when word spread that the creator of the pride flag, the original pride flag, was transphobic, which works out great because I think this design is much better. Bisexual. Bisexual refers to a person who's attracted to more than one gender. Traditionally, this label has been interpreted to mean attraction to both men and women, but it is not limited to just those two identities. I actually have the bi pride flag behind me right now, which was designed by Michael Page. Pansexual. Pansexual refers to someone whose attraction does not factor in gender identity. This sexuality label in particular has it a little rough. I can't quite tell if it's a meme or a genuine point of confusion, but pansexuality does not refer to someone who is attracted to pans. I can't believe I just said that sentence out loud. Additionally, the difference between pansexual and bisexual has been a point of debate in the community. The definition I gave you is the general consensus, but there has been some that believe that the term bisexual is inherently transphobic and should be replaced with pansexual. Asexual. Asexual refers to a person who does not experience sexual attraction. There is also something known as the ace spectrum. Someone on the ace spectrum sometimes experiences sexual attraction, but only under certain conditions or just rarely in general. For example, demisexual people experience sexual attraction only after a strong emotional bond has already been formed. Gender terminology. Cisgender. This term refers to someone who identifies with the gender that they were assigned at birth. Like straight, cis is not a slur. Transgender. This term refers to someone who does not identify with the gender they were assigned at birth, which could mean a few different things. A transgender woman is a woman who is assigned male at birth, and a transgender man is a man who is assigned female at birth. There are some people that confuse the terms transgender woman and transgender man. To help alleviate this confusion, transgender people sometimes go by the terms FTM or MTF, standing for female to male or male to female respectively. This term is still occasionally used, but for the most part it's been phased out, as some trans people argue that they were always their identified gender and they didn't go from male to female, they were always female, if that makes sense. Non-binary. Non-binary is another term that is used both as an umbrella term and a specific identity. A person that is non-binary is someone who doesn't identify as strictly a man or a woman, either falling outside of the gender binary completely, hence the name, or a combination of different genders. Some non-binary identities include agender, someone who does not identify with gender, and gender fluid, someone whose gender identity is fluid and changes. Queer. I decided to separate this term from the others for a couple of reasons. Like the term gay, it's often used as an umbrella term to describe the entire LGBTQIA community, and also it has an iffy past. Queer was traditionally used as a slur against the LGBTQIA people. In recent years, it's been reclaimed to the umbrella term it is used for today. I've probably used the term queer, not even meaning to, a couple of times over the course of this webinar. However, some people still find the term offensive, so if you want to play it on the safe side, if you're not in the community yourself, I recommend you don't use the word. Pronouns. While pronouns might not be terminology specific to the LGBT community, pronouns are an important part of many trans people's lives, especially non-binary pronouns. So I guess it's time for an English lesson. Pronouns are closely connected to the concept of grammatical gender, which is defined as a noun class system that categorizes words as masculine, feminine, and sometimes neutral. Some languages are more gendered than others. Spanish, for example, is a highly gendered language, as almost every single noun has a gender. But languages like English have this concept appear more rarely. Pronouns is one of the only examples I can find in English. Unfortunately, English does not have an official gender-neutral third-person pronoun. Some have been proposed, most notably ze, zer, but most non-binary people use the plural form of the third person they. Some people have an issue with this, claiming it's not grammatically correct. However, that's not technically the case. They in the singular has a long history. Its first ever recording in a 1375 romance novel, William and the Werewolf. It has been used in the writings of famous authors like Shakespeare and Emily Dickinson. Additionally, it's also not the first English pronoun to make the shift from plural to singular. The pronoun you was once used exclusively in the plural tense, but starting in the 16th century and solidifying in the 18th century, it became used in both the plural and singular. And all of that aside, to be frank, language is completely made up. We can make any change to it that we want, whenever we want. So that's basically all I have for today. Just a final thought before I go off. I mentioned at the top of this episode that it's extremely important to respect the label that someone chooses for themselves. This also goes for a person's pronouns and name change, if applicable, even when the person is not present. Actually, especially when the person is not present. I can guarantee that the person in question will find out if you are not using their proper pronouns or name when they're not around. Even if you just don't understand it, it will deeply hurt them. Next episode will be the fourth and final episode in this series, tackling allyship. What you can do to help your queer friends, family, scouts, strangers, etc. in your life to feel welcomed and safe. Hope to see you in the next one.